Welcome to another video from DIY Daily. Just got a full step-by-step guide today showing you how to fit a new timing belt kit and water pump on this 2001 Audi A4 B5, and it's the 1.9 PD TDI engine. The cam belt's situated at the front, so to do it we're going to get the front end into like the service position. Basically we just get it and it just pulls forward, but we'll run you through everything on there step at a time. Just before I get into the video, just show you the bits we're using. We've got a full gates cam belt kit with a pump. If you check out the links in the description below, I'll put links to where you can get this kit from, all the part numbers, all the torque settings, all the levels and everything. And we've got a timing pin kit, and put a link in the description below to that as well. So, but it's got two different types of holder for the crank pulley, and we'll run you through that at the time, just checking which one it is. It's to do with the style of the teeth on the pulley, so, and then the pins for the cam up there as well. In the kit we've got new cam belt, new water pump, there's a new idler pulley, and we've got, it's quite important on these earlier 1.9s, you can do it without, but you can have issues sometimes with these studs shearing off, so, but we're going to be replacing this new stud, which is for the tensioner, so the new tensioner's there. So. But we'll just get it up in the air and get started. Obviously using 2-poster ramp today does make the job a little bit easier, but if not using a ramp, you just probably want to jack it up quite high on the front, on both sills, just to give you a decent bit of access, that's all. So, but obviously we'll be working at this sort of height anyway, so it's not too bad without a ramp. But let's get into the video. Just before we get started as well, if you haven't already subscribed to the channel, just click on the red subscribe button below. To get it into the service position, if you have got aircon, it doesn't actually affect the pipe work or anything. They're flexible, so it does save you having to have the aircon degassed as well, so which is always a bonus. Let's run you through how to get it into get the front end into the service mode. So the first thing we're going to do is just put it up in the air, get the both front wheels off, and take the front bumper off. I'll just run you through the bolts when we get it up in the air for the bumper. Alright, now that we've got the wheels off, just show you quickly the next step to getting the bumper off. Basically, either side, you're going to be coming just inside the front arch. You've got 3 bolts, one at the top there, one in the middle, and one to the lower section there. You want to get all 3 of them out on either side. And on the front bumper, just pull these grills out. You've got a panel, just the left one and the right one. You don't need to take the centre one out. And when you've got these out, just in about roughly around this position here, there's a vertical hex head bolt going up. You undo them. There's one this side and just one that side, and then once you've done that, you should be able to just pull the bumpers out. You sometimes you have to give them a bit of a tug, just pull them out to the side. You'll be able to work that round. You might have just some connectors to disconnect for the fog lights, might be possibly one for the horn under there, but I don't think you'll have to disconnect that. But we'll get them out now and get the front bumper off. Right, so now that we've got the bumper off, the next step we're going to do, just come around the side here. You've got a torque screw there. You're going to be taking that out. This air scoop needs to just come out the way. It's just sort of on a clip, a bit of a grommet at the top there. Once you clip that out, you can drop it down and get it out. And then we're going to need to undo the 3 Torx bolts, just holding this bracket on there. And you want a Torx 45 socket for that. And we've got the same again this side, 3 bolts there, and then just your one on the side there. And we'll get them out next, and then we'll move on to the next step. Just show you quick, as well as the Torx screws, there's a little bit tight on one side of this, and we have got them off. There's a little 10mm nut you will be undoing as well there, and that has 3 on that side, but on the right hand side, on the left hand side here, you do actually need to undo this other Torx screw up there as well. So you've got 4 on the left, and then again the little 10mm as well. Right, so now that we've got all them done, we're nearly ready to put it into the service position. Just the next few bits we've got to do. You just want to take this trim out here, basically just pushes on there, so you just need to pull that back and it pops up off there. You put it out of the way. You need to pull this rubber seal off. It just pushes onto the back of the panel there. Just pull that off and just tuck it to the back. Then you're going to need to undo these 2 Torxes, 2 on the left there and 2 on that side there. Once we've undone them, we should be able to then just ease the front panel forward with everything on it. Just be a bit careful, you just got to lift it and just seat it forward. You can put some like a bungee cord or a cable tie just to sort of hold it from going too far if you want, but it sort of rests there, not too bad. But we'll just get them out now and rest it in the service position. Yeah, so we've now got it in what we call the service mode. Basically the front panel just hangs forward there. It's fairly sort of stable really, but that just allows loads of room to get to the cam belt. You can see before it was really tight. The next thing we're going to do, just quickly take this top cover section off. Basically just a couple of metal clips there either side, and just flick them off and get the top cover section off. Just slide it upwards. You can see the top section of the cam belt now. We're going to next take the 2 auxiliary belts off. Basically the aircon belt, the outside one. Just try to show you the tension there, because I'm not going to be able to film it too well, but this is the tensioner bracket there. And basically you need to undo this Allen key there, just slacken it off basically, and then that Allen key at the back there. Slacken them both off, and then you can put your 17mm spanner on there, and you can just twist it, and it'll just pull the tension off the belt. Obviously, when you're nipping it back up, you just put the tension on there, and then nip your 2 Allen keys up again. So we'll just undo that. We'll slacken them off and get that belt off, and then to get your alternator belt off, all you want to do is put a 19mm spanner on this pulley, on that outer pulley on the tensioner there. And if you just turn put it on there, and if you just pull it anti-clockwise, that'll take the tension off. It's nice and slack there, then you can just lift the belt off. So we'll just get both them belts off now, and then move you on to the next step. Right, so now that's both belts off. Obviously this belt's still up round the viscous fan at the minute. The next few steps we're going to do, we need to take the viscous fan off, got the crank pulley to take off. Now there is, in the centre of the crank pulley, just try to show you on the camera, you want your 4 outer bolts in there, them Allen keys around the outside. You want all 4 of them off, and get the outer crank pulley out of the way. But to get the viscous fan off, the bolt for the fan comes through the back. You need to access it through the back of this housing there. Just try to show you on the camera again. As you see, there's a little hole in the back there, and then you've got an 8mm Allen key, and you can go through that and into there. But to get you've got your Allen key in there, you might find that you need to, it will obviously spin the viscous fan, so you need to just get some grips and just hold the fan. Sometimes it's a little bit easier to do this with a belt on. It does normally slip a bit, so you still have to obviously just put a bit of grip on the belt, or just grab the pulley anyway. So, but we'll just get that fan cracked off and out of the way now. And the reason we need the fan out of the way is we need to get this tensioner off behind it. But I'll show you that once we've got the fan off. It's just the tensioner gets in the way of taking this bottom cam belt cover off. So we'll just get that bottom pulley and the fan out of the way next. That's the viscous fan out of the way. Once you've got the bolt out, they are a little bit tight, just so to sort of work them a little bit, just get a little bit tight on there. But whether you can get a bar in just behind the back there, so it didn't come off too bad, but just working it a little bit just gets it off. So that's that out of the way. We'll just get that bottom crank pulley out now. Right, well, just undoing the bottom crank pulley. It does have a tendency to just turn the engine over as you're undoing them. Obviously, because we're a bit limited to room here, we can't get the impact driver in. If we had the impact driver in, it'd just whip it out, but just have to put a little bit more force on it, or hold the crank pulley with some grips again. Or maybe the air ratchet might just work with the battery one, but we'll just get that cracked off right now. Just had a little bit of trouble there, a bit of one rounded one, so in the end we used one of these real stumpy air guns. Quite handy bits of kit these. I'll put a link in the description below to these. But sometimes just the air ratchet, the battery air ratchet is enough to get them undone. There's just enough room just to get this one in, so quite handy being quite short. We've got that out and just have to replace that. So, but if you haven't got an air gun, sometimes the best approach is put a ratchet in it, fairly long, and just get the end of the ratchet a tap with an hammer. That'll sometimes do it. So we'll just get that crank pulley out of the way now and get the tensioner off. So that's the crank pulley out of the way. Obviously, so it's just them 4 outer ones that you're undoing. These 3 come off okay. It's just that one that rounded out. So now that that's out, you can see quite a bit more of the bottom casing now. We just see this tensioner wheels in the way. Basically, to get this off, you just need to undo the Allen key in the centre there, and then a little 13mm at the bottom on the tensioner piece. So if we can get that out of the way, then we'll be able to take these bolts out around the bottom cover. We've got a couple of 10mm at the bottom there, another one there, another one to the side there, and just one bit higher up as well. I think that's it. And once we've got all them done, that'll be the bottom part of the cam belt cover out of the way, and then we can show you go on to putting it into the timing position and pinning it up. Right, so now that we can see the full belt, we're ready to put it in the timing position. Just running through quick, basically we've got the tensioner there, the idler pulley, the water pump. But where we're going to, where we pin it up, just looking at the cam pulley here, there's these 3 outer holes here, and if you just see through one of them, this is the one there that you can see clearly right through the pulley. So that's where the pin will be going through. The other 2 have got like a bit of a backing plate on it where you can't get the pin right through. And there's a little arrow on the crank pulley on the edge, which will line up with the mark on the tool, and then the pin on the tool will run through. I'll just give this a quick clean off because it's covered in oil, and it pin pushes into and locks in there. So, but all I'll do is turn it over. I'm just going to be using a 19mm hex socket on the crank pulley to turn it over, and I'll just be looking at this through that gap there to line it up with a pinhole in the back. It's roughly around in this position here somewhere, but I'll just turn that over to get to that position, then run you through the next bit. Right, so it's actually a bit further round than I thought. It's actually about there, but I'll just show you quickly. There is actually, just on the back of there, you can just see that little arrow there. That normally roughly lines up with the centre of them two tabs on the back of the crank pulley there. But basically where I've pulled this round, through that gap there, you can just see in the back, that's that nice circle roll there, that's the pinhole for the timing pin to line up with. And then the crank pulley in this position there, you might find if this is at the bottom, can be 180 degrees out with the top cam pulley right. So if it is, just do another full rotation of the crank and line your cam up again, and you'll find that this will line up the top. And that little line there basically needs to line up on the timing tool with a arrow. Should I show you there? There's an arrow there on the tool, and you need to fit this tool in. And you don't just drop it onto the teeth. You actually have to sort of pull it back, hook it over and slide it in, and it locks on the teeth. And it basically slides in, and then it should slide into that hole there. But you can see on this one the timing's actually slightly out. So basically all I'm going to do, normally that would just slide straight in and that's locked, and then you can just take the tensioner off, take the belt off, but I'm basically just going to leave that there now. And then when I undo the tensioner, I'll just put this pin in the cab next, but when I undo the tensioner, I'll just slightly turn that round and then lock that in there. The belt's maybe just stretched over time, put the timing slightly out. So, but all I'll do now is just get the pin in. That's just that pin there. Again, you can just see through there. That should just nicely. You might sometimes be a little bit tight. You might just have to just work it a little bit side to side just to get it absolutely bang on. But I should be able to get that straight in there. So I'll just get that in now, and then once that's pinned, we'll move on to the next step. So I've just got that pin in there. Just have to give it a little gentle tap with a hammer. They can be quite tight on these. We've found in the past sometimes just sort of shave the ends down, but if you give them a bit of a knock, they normally go in. So that's locked solid now. The bottom one's just out just because I need to adjust it a bit. What I'm going to do now, 15mm socket, just undo the tensioner nut there, just wind it off. And if you want to just slacken it off, you can just put the Allen key in there and just turn that to take a bit more tension off the belt. Once that's off, we'll just pull the cam belt off. Just show you quickly before getting the belt off. One thing I forgot to say is some of these PD engines just have a normal style tensioner where they have like a tab off it with a pin. It's normally on about this side where it locks into place. This one's got a hydraulic tensioner. And just seeing there's a hydraulic shaft there, and this is part of the tensioner there. And what we need to do, just a little tool that comes in the kit, just this piece there, and all that does is just hold this shaft back in the fully back position. Basically there's a channel just through there where the tool slots in. Sometimes you have to just give them a bit of a clean out. They can get a bit shitty in there because they don't get used very often. So but basically that pushes in there, and then you need to put your ratchet on the Allen key for the tensioner and wind it back and push that down. So just do that quick, just show you. Just pull that back. They are quite tight, so they work quite slowly until it goes right back into place. That's it there. And then when you've got that in, you can just release the pressure off, and that's held the tensioner now in a fully back position. So, but I'll run you through what you need to do when you're putting this back together, because you need to put the belt on. Just need to do it in a certain order, that's all. So, but I'll run you through that when it's done. Now that that's locked there, obviously we can just unbolt this fully and pull the tensioner out of the way. So we'll do that and get the belt off and everything with it. So that's about out. It's a little bit tight, just getting it out around them fuel pipes there. So, but you didn't actually need to take the bracket off. Now that I've done that, the next thing I'm going to do is just turn this bottom crank pulley and just put that locking pin properly in, just so I know that's right. I'll just show you quickly there on that. Now that just turn that back, that just slides in nice and straight into the hole there. So belt must have stretched, or it's just been set slightly out. So now that we've put that right, and you can just see on the underneath there that the arrow on the tool there lines up with that arrow on the crankshaft as well. So now that we've got the belt off, we're just going to undo the 15mm nut there, slide the tensioner off, and then we'll start undoing the water pump, pull the water pump out. Obviously as you undo the water pump, you're going to lose quite a bit of coolant, so you'll be just putting a catch tray underneath it while we drop that down. So you can see it's just held on by some 10mm bolts. I think there's 4 10mm bolts. As we're putting everything back together, we'll run you through all the torque settings as well. And there's obviously this idler pulley there to come off as well. That's the water pump out. It's a little bit of a mess just coming out, but you can just see there's no ring seal there on the pump. So all I'm going to do now is just let that drain down a little bit, just give it a bit of a wash off with some brake cleaner. It just makes it, because antifreeze is a lubricant as well, you don't really want it all over the crank pulley and everything, so just get that a bit of a clean down. And all I'm going to do is just use a rag on the inside, maybe a bit, if it was a bit rough, I'd maybe use a bit of emery cloth. I'll just wipe round the edge and just get any grime off there ready for the new pump. Once we've done that, I'll run you through refitting everything and all the torque settings. You can just see there where the pump sits in. It's not too bad really around this edge, and the O-ring seal's just going to sit in there. So I'll just put the new pump in, just wind them bolts in lightly before I wash it down, and then we'll torque that up. Just as you're fitting your new pump, just want to be careful of that seal. Sometimes you could put a little bit of like rubber grease around it, but generally if you just put it in and just work it slightly as you're pushing it in, you'll find it should go in quite nicely. Right, so that's the water pump bolts loosely done up, and just put the idler pulley in as well. We're just going to torque these up next, and then we'll get this stud out and swap this stud over. Run through that in a minute. But the torque settings for the water pump is 13 Newton meters, and the idler pulley is 20 Newton meters. We're using a digital torque wrench tonight. Quite a nice bit of kit. I'll put a link in the description below to these. But you can use a digital one or a normal one. If you haven't got a torque wrench, it's always nice with cam belts and tensioner to torque them up properly really, but if you haven't got a torque wrench, 13 Newton meters is not a lot really, it's quite a light nip. So 13 Newton meters for the water pump, and then you want 20 Newton meters for the 13mm bolt on the idler. I'll just nip them up next. Right, so we've now got the idler pulley tensioned up and the water pump as well. It's always worth just giving the water pump just a quick feel by hand, just make sure it feels alright, check there's no play in it. The next thing we're going to do is remove this stud now. You don't have to do it, but the later ones, and some of them did have issues with these studs shearing off, so it's always nice to change them really. But all I'm going to do is wind 2 nuts on it, hold the first one, wind the second one back to it, and then use that to put a spanner on it to undo that, and it will just pull the stud out. And then we'll put the new one in, and the torque setting for the new one's 13 Newton meters, and we'll just get that swapped over.
Blow the hole out, bit of oil.
Right, so that's the old stud out, and just say it's a thicker, different thread on one side to the other. It's always worth, as you pulled it out, just have a quick look and just make sure that you've got no alley in there and it hasn't damaged the threads inside the head. So we can do away with that now. Basically, I've just give the hole a little bit of a blowout with the airline. I'm just going to spray a bit of WD-40 on the thread of these as well before I put them in. But we're sort of going to do the same procedure now, double nut it, use that to torque it up to 13 Newton meters, and then just be careful when you're separating your 2 nuts once it's on, just be careful to make sure that you do hold the inner one and you don't start winding it out as you crack it off. So we'll just get that swapped over now. So we've now got the stud all torqued up correctly. Next thing we're going to do is just slide the tensioner on. Seat that down into its position, and then we're just going to wind the nut on just really lightly, just so it takes out the free play, just so it don't move too much like that. You don't want to be doing it up tight. So I'm going to need to tension it in a minute using these 2 holes after we've released the locking pin, but we'll do that once we've got the belt on. So that's on there. Just backed it off slightly. It's just took out that, just got it just enough nip to stop it moving. So now we've got the tension on ready. Next thing we're going to do is just slacken these 3/13s off around the outside. See, this outer pulley is just floating where the pin's locked. It locks the piece on the back, which is a crucial bit. So this just allows you to get the belt nice and taut and even all the way around. So it's basically slacken them off, and you just want to turn it to the pulley clockwise position and just leave them loose enough so that the pulley can turn. And basically, as we put the tension on, I'm just going to pull it nice and even and just keep the belt nice and taut all the way around. So once that's there, what we're going to do now is start threading the cam belt on. We're going to start around the camshaft, around the tensioner, the idler pulley, the crankshaft, back round the water pump, and onto the camshaft again, and then we'll run you through tensioning it up. And when fitting a new cam belt, sometimes they have arrows on showing the direction. If it hasn't got arrows on, just fit it so that the writing's reading the way that it's going to turn over. So fitting this now, I'll be fitting this in that direction there. Sometimes it's handy with a couple here. When threading it round, you might want someone to hold it on a couple of the pulleys while you get it round, but we'll just get that fed round now. Right, so I've got the belt all routed round now. Once you've got it on, just have a good look, make sure it's on all the teeth properly, on all the pulleys, so see it's on the crankshaft there. And just make sure that that is still sort of floating that pulley. Just try to turn it, just so you can get a bit of movement there. So basically the idea is, as we tension it now, that can float round there, pull that taut, and it'll just pull it, take any slack out of this side as well. So what we're going to do next is release this pin on the tensioner, let that take that first bit up, and then we'll tension this. Now there is a proper Volkswagen tool, basically has 2 pins in it to turn that. We'll be using a set of circlip pliers tonight, so to do that we'll run through that in a minute. Just to take that pin out, just going to put an Allen key in there, just turn that anti-clockwise, sorry, and that'll allow us just to push the tension down just slightly, just to pull our locking tab out there. So let's do that. And so that's now released the pin onto the tensioner there. Right, next thing we're going to do now, just going to use the circlip pliers in there. There is a special Volkswagen tool you can get, but circlip pliers will do the same thing. I'm just going to use that in there to turn it anti-clockwise, and basically as we do, this is going to start levering this bracket down, and the actual gauge where you want to be setting it is 4mm in this cap. Now this tool that's for the tensioner is 3mm. Basically it's 4mm in between there and there once you've wound it round. So you know basically that you get 4mm plus or minus a mil. So all we'll do is turn it round until it's just got that and a bit of free play in it. And once it's there, you need to hold it in that position and lightly nip your centre nut there, and then I'll run you through the torque setting is 20 Newton meters and then 45 degrees. So if I just get out, it's a bit of a juggle, so try and get it all while I'm filming it, because obviously someone will be holding the circlip pliers there. I'll give it a quick nip. Once we've done the 20 Newton meters, that should be enough to release the circlip pliers to then do the 45 degrees. And so we'll just run through that now.
Just settling down. You see it?
Yeah.
Is that it?
Yeah. So it's 4 plus or minus 1 as well. So now that we've set that, just see it's nicely settled, and just say we're using that as a gauge there. This piece is 3mm, and the gauge is 4mm plus or minus a mil, so we're within tolerance there. You just see that gap basically between there and there. So sometimes the tensioner can drag it down a little bit, but as you're tensioning it up with the circlip pliers or the tool, you just need to sort of just do it gradually, because just turn it around a little bit, just let the hydraulic pressure go a little bit, and then you'll be able to turn it a little bit more. So it just takes a little while to get it round, but you can see now it's settled there. So next thing we're going to do, I've just got to nip these 3 outer pulley bolts up on the camshaft, and they will be 25 Newton meters. So we'll nip all them up. It's ideal to hold the camshaft pulley with a holding tool while you do that. So just nip them up now. And once we've done that, we're going to pull the timing pin out the top, the timing pin out the bottom. Then we're going to do 2 full rotations. All I'll do is put a little paint mark on the gear wheel and do 2 full rotations of the camshaft. Then we're going to make sure all the timing marks line up, so I'll just do that quick now. Just see roughly by the paint mark there, just on 2 full rotations. Now all I'm going to do is put the timing pins back in and just make sure that they line up and slot into place bang on. So at that it should be roughly about there. You can see we're about there. So we just put the 2 pins in, just make sure it's bang on. Just see with that, top pin's gone in nicely there, and the bottom one's just slid straight in the hole there as well. So I know the timing's absolutely bang on now. So we'll just take them back out and start rebuilding everything as we took it apart. So as you see, not too bad a job really. Just thought I'd put the video on there in case anyone wants to have a go at theirs. And it's not too bad to do as long as you take your time. But I'll just fly through the video as we put it back together, and then run through bleeding the cooling system as well. So just check out the links in the description below if you want some links to some of the tools used, some of the timing pin kits and torque wrenches and anything like that. Just one quick thing to be aware of when putting your top timing cover in. This section of it there, you just need to make sure it just hooks in and just guides in that little metal bracket there. Stops it sort of pinging outwards. So, but you'll just see once it's slotted in the right place, they line up nicely there. Just start building up the bottom there, get the crank pulley on, or the alternator belt, the aircon belt, and get this front end back in. Just one other thing to take note of, on the crank pulley you've got one hole bigger than all the others. Yeah, obviously not the bolt holes, but these little holes, but if you see that hole there, it's just slightly bigger than these 3, and that lines up on the actual crank pulley. You'll see there's a little lug just there. You want to line that up and over that little lug there. So we've now got the viscous fan all on, auxiliary belts round and nipped up. That's just a simple case of just slackening that tension off and putting it round. Once you've got it on, just have a good look round, just make sure it's on all the pulleys. Next I'm just going to put the aircon belt on. And all you need to do, just put the belt around there, just hold some tension on it with a 17mm spanner there. And while you put that on, you just want to nip your 2 Allen bolts up. It doesn't want to be mega tight, just once it's on, I always say if you can get about half a twist on the belt, that's about where you want to be, so just nip that up now. A bit better there. First time just didn't get that quite tight enough, so now that that's done again, you just so you can get a good half turn on there. So it doesn't want to be mega tight, but it does need to be reasonably tight. If you do get a bit of squealing on it, it just needs nipping up a bit tighter. So. Right, so we've just pulled the front end back in, just put them 2 Torxes in there just to hold it up, but just before I put the bumper on now, I'm going to run you through bleeding the cooling system. It's just this way around, we can bleed it up quick, start it up and leave it running while we put everything else back together. Just nice that way, you can just check and make sure you've not got any leaks or anything. So, but to bleed it up, we're going to need to crack one of the heater hoses off. Basically to do that, we've just got to take this trim off here, take the front cover off, this top panel off, and just get to the heater hose. So here's your 2 hoses to your heater matrix. We want to be taking this pipe off there. Basically got a pinch clip on it, pull it back, and you can pull your rubber hose back, and there's a little like a bleeder hole there. And basically because this is quite a high point, it's always the best point to get the air out. So all we're going to do is pull that back and just listen for it coming out. You'll hear the air sound different to the coolant, and once it's coming out, just neat coolant, and you can put your hose back on. When you've done that, just basically going to leave it running. Obviously make sure your coolant level's topped up all the time while you're doing it, and then just leave it running for a good 5 minutes after with the cap off, and that'll allow it to that should be it bled up nicely. But once you've done it, it's always worth the morning after, just have a quick check of your coolant level, just make sure it hasn't settled a bit. But we'll just do that now and just show you that. All the air's come through now. We've just got neat coolant coming out there, so you might just worth just keeping an eye on it for a few minutes. You might get a few bubbles come through. Once you're happy after a few minutes of that, so keeping your coolant topped up all the time, you can just push that hose back on and just leave it running. Obviously when you start it up, just make sure it sounds okay, and just have a good look down the front as well. Just make sure your auxiliary belts are running nice and true. Now, when I do start this one up, it might sound a bit noisy. It's got a fault with the air compressor, so hopefully yours won't sound the same as this just to start with. But it goes off pretty quick.
Yeah.
Yep. So it didn't actually make the aircon noise that time, so, but see, it just stuck straight up. Just had a quick look at the auxiliary belt and the aircon belt. It was all running nice and true. So all we're going to do now is just leave it running, and we'll build it all back together. And then just keep an eye on the coolant. That should hopefully just settle a little bit. If it don't, we might have to just suck a little bit out of there just to set it to the max level. So, and once that's done, it's all sorted. So hope the video helped. And if you liked it, give it a quick thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.